We're out here trying to flatten the curve, right? Keep people off the streets and out of public places so that they have a lower chance of spending time in a hospital. A lot of folks have adopted different strategies to ensure this happens the way we would like it to. Some have limited their time outside, especially at peak hours. Others have started working from home. For many, self-isolation is a relatively new idea. The practice of staying home and monitoring yourself for symptoms for 14 days. Avoiding contact with other people is key because the incubation period of COVID-19 can last a couple weeks and you might not show symptoms. Folks who have traveled outside their country in the past little while or those who've had close contact with someone diagnosed with the virus should be self-isolating. These aren't the only people doing it though. A great deal of individuals have been doing this even without meeting these criteria in the hopes that they don't contract anything from somebody not showing symptoms. Although it's a very popular concept right now, this isn't the first time people have endured self-isolation. In fact, some people have ended up in isolation situations for years, whether or not by choice. In the past, some have elected to be isolated and others have been banished and ostracized, forcing them to remove themselves from society. There's much to think about concerning this topic, so today we're here to run down a few scenarios in case you're worried you might start talking to a volleyball. Hello fellow friends and philosophers, and welcome back to the most mind-bending channel on YouTube, Life's Biggest Questions. I'm your voice in the void, Keegan Hughes, and today we're going to be asking a question that's on the minds of many. What if you were in self-isolation forever? The desert island scenario, the deep forest survival query, the Matt David on Mars movie. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more solo strategies. Wicked, let's begin. In light of recent events, folks might be wondering what life might be like if they had to live like this forever. In less modern times, it would likely be a whole lot harder. We exist in an era of unprecedented technological advance and connectivity, making much of what we do on the daily reliant on the internet. Thankfully, the World Wide Web is still up and running these days, allowing folks stuck at home to continue on as if nothing really happened. Many people are working from their homes thanks to video conferencing technology, cloud-based databases, and the self-control to avoid binging Netflix when you should be updating spreadsheets. Speaking of Netflix, imagine self-isolating before the age of online streaming. Depending on the level of movie buff you were, you'd probably run through your collection of DVDs or VHSs much more quickly than you'd like to admit. Or imagine if you were isolated before home entertainment was a major industry. Nothing to do but sit around and read or listen to the radio. And the radio would likely just be updates about the situation at hand. Boy, we'd either have a creative revolution or riots in the streets. I guess there isn't too much of a difference between the two. But back to my initial point, there isn't much you can't do from home these days. If you were in self-isolation forever, you'd probably just live similarly to how you do now, but with less fresh air and sunshine. I'm sure a lot of folks live like that already. However, there would be some complications. First, you wouldn't look too nice after a while. No professional haircuts, no trips to the barber, your hair and/or facial hair would become a bit of a mess. It's likely you'd become less fit, too, unless you have a stringent home workout routine. If so, you go girl. But yeah, sitting around not being able to do anything or go anywhere, probably not that good for your health. Socialization would be a challenge as well. The hallmarks of modern hangouts, coffee shops, bars, grills, assorted shops and boutiques, all unavailable. Thankfully, social media exists and would provide you with your daily dose of human interaction, but it would be a lot less personal and physical. Oh, and speaking of physical, it would be much more difficult to get your hands on physical goods. You know, like groceries. Self-isolation implies you're not going out for any reason, unlike social distancing where you can go out and do stuff as long as you keep physical space between you and others. This means you're on the delivery wagon. The only groceries you can get would need to be brought to you by outside sources. The only products you get your hands on would need to be shipped to you. Want a new video game? Digital releases, baby. Or I suppose you get Amazon to bring everything to you. So far, we're taking pretty good advantage of the modern conveniences available to us, but stuff like that takes a toll after a while. People like physical contact. They crave one-on-one time with those they love. It would be mentally grueling after a while, and a whole lot of folks would feel blue and out of the loop after a while. Looking disheveled and sun-deprived probably wouldn't help with those feelings either. However, it is possible to change your outlook on this situation. In fact, people have been opting into solitary lifestyles for ages. By looking at the lives that these early adopting folks have lived, we can get a better idea of what life in self-isolation might be like. Of course, there is the classic solo survivor, the hermit. These society shirkers have been around for as long as anyone can remember. They're people who live in seclusion from society, often for religious reasons. Hermits are common in Christianity, Buddhism, and Hinduism. They often prepare for years before descending into solitude, making peace with their loved ones, amassing supplies to help them along the way, and getting mentally ready for their new life. Many have described being alone in a secluded place as an experience that makes them feel content. Living in contemplative silence, they find new meaning in the world and have a clearer, more focused mind. Hermits often become self-sufficient, living off the land, growing their food, tending to livestock. The slower pace can do wonders for your mental health and make them feel closer to whatever deity they worship. Not all hermits are religious though. There are many who choose to live solitarily for other reasons, whether it be anxiety, a desire to go off the grid, or ones who just simply feel at peace among nature. Hermits show up in all sorts of stories throughout history as either crazy coots or old wise thinkers. All that time to yourself to ponder the infiniteness of the universe, no distractions, no unwanted guests. Which one do you think you would end up as? There's another famous type of self-isolation as well, which can largely be traced to Japan. Known as hikikomori, or pulling inward being confined, this is basically acute social withdrawal. Plenty of adolescents and adults withdraw from society and seek extreme degrees of isolation and confinement, but has since been found in other countries. Estimates place the number of youth who are hikikomori at over 500,000, with a similar number ringing true for middle-aged folks as well. The Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare defines it as a refusal to leave one's parents' house, not going to work or school, and isolating away from society and family in a single room for a period exceeding 6 months. A lot of these people have been in there for over 20 years. If anyone knows self-isolation, it's these people. Often they'll spend most of the day, nearly every day, confined to home. They avoid social situations and relationships as often as possible, often leading to social withdrawal symptoms that impair regular functioning. These so-called modern-day hermits could possibly be responding to ancestral desires for withdrawal, or maybe they just aren't able to see themselves in the society around them. Hikikomori folks often have few to no friends and exhibit symptoms of psychological distress and angst, leading to insecurity and shyness. So if you're not contemplative and self-aware during your self-isolation, you may end up with some of these symptoms. This kind of behavior is most common among middle and upper class families though, as folks who do not have the resources to allow their dependents to just live in their room aren't able to support it. If you gotta work to survive, you can't self-isolate. Seems to be the case these days too. So in all likelihood, being in self-isolation forever wouldn't be too difficult, especially thanks to all the modern conveniences available. However, if you're not mindful about being in isolation, you might end up worse off than you imagine. Plus, if the modern conveniences go away, you might be in a really sticky situation. So what do you think? Could you stay isolated for the rest of your life? Would you enjoy it or go stir crazy? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more fermented ones from what if America quarantined themselves. Fox Jake said, then we'd be cut off from the world. Simple as that. Yes, it is indeed simple to be cut off from the world at large in the year 2020. Krunoslav Kovacek says, it would be like in the Middle Ages. You would live in a closed state and only the rich and politicians would go in and out of the country. Who knows? Would it be so bad? Honestly, let's give it a shot. Agrarian culture 2.0. Everyone lives simply. I bet folks would be a lot happier than they are now. Abdirahman Awais asks, what if earthquake hits entire Earth at once? Then we'd be all a little shaken up now, wouldn't we? Lucius the Goose asks, what if nobody went to work again? Well, the economy would certainly take one hell of a beating, and the parties would be wicked. For a while, anyway. And Mia Blake says, woo. And a good day to you as well, Mia. That's all the time we have for today. Before I become dust in the wind, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more concerning questions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.